BRP Tarlac has returned not merely to a shipyard, but to a national conversation about what the Philippines wants its Navy to be. In mid-April 2025, the flagship of the Tarlac-class, LD-601, sailed into PT PAL's Surabaya facilities for an organized maintenance, repair, and overhaul period, an event that, on the face of it, looks like routine logistics. Yet the timing and the work plan there are political as much as technical. Manila is using an Indonesian partner to sustain and upgrade a platform that has become the linchpin of its amphibious lift, humanitarian response, and regional presence. The arrival for MRO was recorded on the 17th of April 2025 and publicly reported in detail by industry outlets and shipyard statements. The practical facts are straightforward. The Tarlac-class, a Makassar-derived design built originally by PT PAL and commissioned into service in 2016 and 2017, provides the armed forces of the Philippines with strategic sea lift, a well deck for landing craft, aircraft handling, and the bulk lift capacity for vehicles, troops, and stores that a maritime archipelago demands. For almost a decade, these ships have been deployed mostly in disaster relief, logistics, and presence missions. They have also been lightly armed in line with their original design to prioritize transport and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief tasks. The current MRO and the parallel program of sensors, communications, and armament upgrades show a conscious decision to push the class toward a more contested environment posture without abandoning its humanitarian utility. That decision is political. Within the Philippine defense establishment, there is a persistent tension between two imperatives: the immediate, visible need to respond to typhoons, earthquakes, and at-sea rescues, and the longer, murkier requirement to deter or withstand coercion in the maritime domain. The Tarlac sits squarely at the intersection. A ship that can carry armored vehicles one week and medical teams the next becomes, in strategic terms, both instrument and statement. A physical manifestation of deterrence through sustainment. Hence the current push to fit the class with better self-defense sensors and command, control, communications, computers, and intelligence upgrades, not to turn an LPD into a frigate, but to make it survivable and credible in a higher threat spectrum of operations. Naval news and other defense outlets have chronicled formal requests from the Philippine Navy for armament, sensor, and communications upgrades earlier in 2025. Upgrading the Tarlac class is also an exercise in industrial diplomacy. The same Indonesian yard that built the original design is now performing the MRO and constructing a new, modified generation of 124-meter landing platform docks for Manila under the Landing Docks Acquisition Project. Keel-laying events in 2024 and sustained construction activity at PT PAL underline a pragmatic ASEAN supply chain reality. The Philippines is deepening a defense-industrial relationship with a neighbor that can deliver ships on budget and on schedule. That matters geopolitically because it signals Manila's preference for regional options in force generation, and it reduces dependence on single external suppliers at a time when strategic competition complicates procurement pathways. The keel laying for follow-on 124-meter LPDs reported in January and again through mid-2024 ceremonies points to an intent to scale and improve amphibious lift capacity. What then should the Philippine public expect these upgrades to change on the water? First, modest but meaningful increases in defensive capability, remote weapon stations, improved small caliber mounts, and point defense sensors that make the ship less of a soft target. Reports have even named specific systems being considered or contracted for follow-on ships, such as heavy machine gun systems from Turkish suppliers for some landing docks, an incremental move that improves close-in protection without the cost or doctrinal upheaval of installing larger caliber naval guns or missile systems. Second, an overhaul of the ship's situational awareness and communications will make the Tarlac a more effective node in joint operations. Able to share targeting data, coordinate with littoral surveillance assets, and support expeditionary operations beyond simple lift. These are not glamorous changes, but they are the precise kinds of improvements that convert a logistics ship into a resilient component of distributed maritime power. Strategically, the Tarlac-class occupies a quietly central role in Manila's evolving defense posture. The archipelago's geography makes sea lift and sea control inherently asymmetric tasks. The Philippines cannot defend every reef or shoal by static presence, so it must be able to move forces, supplies, and sustainment across distance quickly and reliably. The Tarlac and her sisters enable exactly that, enabling deterrence by denial strategies through rapid reinforcement, sustained logistics, and the capacity to shape crises before they metastasize. In the face of increasingly complex gray zone pressures and the specter of maritime coercion, the upgraded LPD is a tool for both contestation and cooperation. It supports patrol operations and allied interoperability as readily as it supports disaster relief, signaling to partners and adversaries alike that Manila can operate with persistence. There are limits to what refits can accomplish. A well-fitted Tarlac remains fundamentally an amphibious transport. It will never substitute for a proper surface combatant in fleet air defense or long-range strike. Upgrades improve survivability and utility, but they do not erase vulnerabilities inherent in hull form and mission design. Equally, the political economy of procurement, budget allocations, sustainment costs, training, and doctrine will ultimately determine whether the ships become blunt instruments of capability or polished tools of strategic effect. The choice to invest in MRO and incremental armament is nonetheless prudent. It buys time and utility while Manila builds a broader force architecture of patrol corvettes, missile units, and surveillance that complements the sea lift backbone. Finally, the symbolism of the Tarlac's return to PT PAL should not be overstated nor ignored. It speaks to an era in which the Philippines is learning to knit together diplomacy, industry, and defense into a coherent maritime policy. The shipyard in Surabaya is not simply a place of steel and paint. It is a node of capability development that reflects Manila's strategic choices. How the Tarlac-class is armed, networked, and deployed over the next 5 years will tell us whether the Philippines intends to remain a navy of humanitarian presence and limited deterrence, or whether it aims, quietly, incrementally, and realistically, to establish the scaffolding for sustained maritime influence across its archipelago. For now, the MRO, the upgrades, and the follow-on LPD program suggest a sober, pragmatic tilt toward the latter. In sum, the Tarlac's voyage to Surabaya in April 2025 is both maintenance and manifesto. The ship will come back not just refreshed, but retasked, better able to protect itself, to network with the fleet, and to move the instruments of state across water when policy demands it. That modest metamorphosis is emblematic of a Philippine defense strategy that prefers resilience and mobility over brittle stoicism, and partnership over isolation. In the strategic calculus of an archipelagic nation, those are not small ambitions, they are survival.